And that's one thing that I don't think that people really grasp and understand is the amount of hustle that it takes.
Right.
The amount of grind. He has fed his AI model so much of his band's work that he's created a clone or a model of his lead singer's voice. So he doesn't even need his lead singer to write the songs and demo out the songs anymore. I think the new musician or the new producer, I think there are going to be the titles for the new producers and musicians are going to be prompt writers.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Horizon. I am here in Zion Studios today. We have a new backdrop. This will be our spot for the next few episodes. And before we dive into it, I just want to remind you to subscribe to the channel. Let's keep this in the ecosystem. Share it out there if you get anything out of today's episode. We would greatly appreciate some comments and also suggestions of what it is you want to see and what you want to hear me interview and talk about. But today I am joined by a good friend and also the owner and founder of Zion Studios, Mr. Dallas Kruse. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking about this the other day. In the pantheon of the family that you're in, you're the newest to the family in my world.
Yes.
Because I've known your wife and your mother-in-law and father-in-law like 30 years.
It's been a while.
It's like been going on 30 years.
Right. So I'm in here now, maybe 14 years ago we met.
It's been 14 years.
We've been married. Libby and I have been married 13. And then we were dating for about a little over a year and a half. So we're getting close to about 15 years we've known each other. Yeah. But these are intermittent moments of hanging out and time passes but
and kids and all that comes with it.
Yes, kids, business, travel, moving around, all this stuff.
And before we even start, like, that family is family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just, oh, hey, we have friends. No, they're like, so the closeness is like, they've been through some stuff with us and we've been through some stuff with them. And they're like, I would say our closest people. So when you mentioned coming on, I was like, dude, of course. And thank you. Like, I'm honored to be here.
Yeah.
And then when, spot opened up, I was like, oh, obviously, like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
I love what you're doing, what you're trying to do. And I will admit, like, I think all of my professional life, I've either been in music or ministry or both.
Mm-hmm.
And your world, financial world, goes like this to me. Like, it's it's way over my head. Like, when you can talk about finances and you can talk about insurance and all this stuff, and I have to admit, I'm like, my eyes cross. I just get a 1,000-yard stare, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. Just where do I sign?
Right.
So kudos on being able to do all that stuff and build what you're building now, and now obviously branching off with the podcast and everything.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I mean, my goal is definitely to try to take that confusing world and break it down into something that's a little bit more digestible.
Is that how your mind works? Like, do you feel like you as a person got into this because your mind works that way so well? Because I know of a couple like accountants,
mm-hmm.
and they are like dead fish, like talking to them, it's like their mind is, it's almost like they're spectrum-y, like super analytical and like super.
Right. I am not that way.
Right.
Like I mean, quite honestly, my profession, I fell into it. Like, I didn't go and seek and say, this is what I'm going to do. I kind of got recruited into the sales side of it.
Okay.
And then as I developed, I learned how to sell it, and then I learned how it technically worked. But I would say that I'm more of I enjoy the client interaction portion, the taking of something complex and distilling it down into something simple that you can understand. And like that dynamic and conversation, that's the part I enjoy. The technical spreadsheet analyst, all that stuff, that's not my world that I like.
Okay,
love
so
at
let
all.
me ask you something. You as a person, like, you seem to not ever, I don't want to say have an issue with, but Like that is your world, talking to people, getting on the phone with people, chatting, and like pulling stuff out of people. When I think about getting on the phone now, like I have anxiety, like I stress out about, like I see my phone ringing and I'm like, "Ugh," you know, like that. So coming from an entrepreneurial standpoint with you, that's like the best character trait to be able to have, because you're going to go out and grind. For me, I would much rather be sitting in this studio with the dogs and like just be working on music and no one talk to me.
Right.
And not that I'm like super, like hermit, but I've never been able to go out and, for lack of a better term, sell myself.
Right. I think what you're describing right now, though, is common in the creative world. Like people who are naturally geared towards creativity, music and art and things of that nature tend to be less self-promotion.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Not
okay, so I would agree, but I would also say there's a lot of people who think that they're much better than they are.
Right.
Like their confidence sorely outweighs their competence.
Yeah.
Like, and obviously I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot of people that come, because I've seen it so many times where over the years, I've been in this spot for about 17 years now, and I've seen artists come and go. I work with a lot of like independent artists. A lot of them come in from out of state, and it's so funny that if you were to take a look at their driver's license from Arizona or wherever they were the moment they come out here, and then fast forward 10 years to their California driver's license, and it looks like they're meth addicts or something, because they've been beaten down by this system. Like they think that they're going to come in and just take over the world. Like they think that LA doesn't have enough models or doesn't have enough actors or doesn't have enough singers. So they come in with a lot of confidence.
Right.
I think there is a class of artists that does have a lot, and they will go, but you're right. It's few and far between, and that's what I was talking about was that, dude, you are so good at being able to just approach people with ideas and concepts and talking to them and like openly. And I've always felt like almost a D-bag, or like I feel like, and I know it's not it,
Right.
but I've always felt like, dude, I don't want to go and like say, approach this artist about producing them, or like, hey, I'm a organ player, I'm a keyboard player, I can play for you, or I can do your orchestra, or like I've just never been able to do that.
I feel like there's this fine line that as long as you don't cross it, you won't be the D-bag that you're talking about, right? Because when you describe that, you're talking about the guy who's
this
like...
is going to turn into a therapy session, by the way.
That's all good.
You're my therapist today.
So when you talk about feeling like you're going to be a douchebag, it's like because you don't want to be the person who's coming in as that like ultra salesy, right? Like
putting pressure.
You're putting pressure, and you're trying to... So the way to get rid of that is to just make sure whatever you're approaching is actually going to benefit them. If you're pushing...
That's a good way to think about it.
If you're pushing a benefit onto someone else, you may also benefit from it. But, in my world of insurance and investments and things
let me ask you this. Why have I spent thousands on therapists and no one's ever said it the way you just said it? Like, why is it not put it that way?
I don't know.
Why hasn't it been ever put that way? I mean, that's a good concept. But there's always the thought of, because essentially what I and other people in my position are doing are selling themselves. Like yes, we're offering, like, for instance, if someone was an artist and they needed a string arrangement or they needed orchestral arrangement, and I can do that. I do it all the time. And I know where my skill set lies, but me going up to them and approaching them and saying, hey, I can produce your music, or I can do this, or I can do this, I feel like I'm going up, like showing them the resume. I've worked with so-and-so, I've worked with you. I'm essentially selling myself. I'm not selling a product per se. Like with you may be selling packages of whatever sort of investments or whatever that they need, rather than Do you feel like that you're selling yourself? Like, trust me, I can do this for you.
Yeah, I do, but I think ultimately, and what we train our sales team on is you need to sell the problem, not the product, solution, or service.
Yeah.
You need to sell the problem. And when someone else believes that there's a problem, then most people want to fix what they actually could address and say, yes, I recognize a problem, right?
Yeah.
So how do you find a problem in this, somebody needing a, what'd you call it? A string,
Like a string arrangement, orchestral arrangement. Yeah.
You need an
They need
orchestral
production.
arrangement.
They need
so,
production.
so what are some of the things that go wrong? They need that arrangement, but what are some of the, why do they need it? And then what are some of the issues that they're going to run into if they get it done by someone subpar?
Right.
So to me, selling is question asking first, and then usually you can just land on that conclusion. So if I'm asking that, I don't know, give me a little bit of an example. Let's break it down. Like, who would need a string arrangement, and how like, why?
Well, okay, so that's well, just in the world of like music or production, that's one aspect of it. Like when you're producing a record or producing a song, let's just say, and someone comes in, someone has an acoustic guitar and they have a song. Like, let's say you're the artist.
Yeah.
You come in and you say, I have a song and I'd like to record it. Okay, great. Here's the studio. I can produce it. And so many people ask me, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to be a music producer? And then the next question is, you ever work with anyone famous? You know, like every time, you know.
These are your potential clients are asking you that.
Or people off the street.
Right.
What do you do? What does that mean? Like if somebody said, what does it mean to be a movie producer? Like, I don't think anyone really knows, you know. Typically in the movie world, it's like you're kind of the money and making things happen, you know. But in the music world, a music producer essentially takes your song. If you come in with an acoustic guitar and some lyrics and you play the song, then someone like me takes it to the final product until the public hears it. So we're the ones sort of deciding what goes on, rearranging the song. Are we adding drums, keys, vocals? Are we adding, you know, what are we adding strings? Or what are we doing to this thing that is right now just acoustic guitar and vocals? And then also trying to get that song and that full production to the best possible outcome. So if you're in here and it's your vocal day and you're here to sing, it's my job to try and get the best performance out of that song, out of you, you know. And there's been plenty of times when you're working with a lot of singer-songwriters are very volatile, very up in their head, you know. And there's been times when we've been in sessions and there've been breakdowns, you know, and you know, like you're dealing with a lot of different personalities. So that's essentially what a music producer does is they take it from scratch demo ideas to fully produced songs. And it can be very expensive. It can be not expensive. It can be like very labor intensive, you know, if you're doing like a full orchestra, you know, type of deal. And then ultimately it's your decision to say like, okay, well, I mean, not ultimately your decision. I always kind of leave it up to the artist, but it's on you if it doesn't sound the way that they want it to sound, or if it doesn't, you know, doesn't come out good.
Right.
So getting back to that point, sorry, that was a long-winded answer. Selling the services, I feel like a lot of it does come down to, and as long as I've known you, and as long as I've never gotten a sense that you lack self-confidence. And would you attribute self-confidence to the lack of being able to sell something? Like, in terms of like literally turning the sales thing back into a reflection of yourself, of like, okay, let me do some deep thinking here.
Yeah.
Do I truly believe in myself as like a person who can do X, Y, Z, whatever position that I'm in?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like a loop. So the more confidence you have initially, the more you're going to be able to probably pull someone in and captivate and have this conversation. But then your results are going to cement your confidence.
Yeah.
Right. And then your results. And then it's this kind of, so in the beginning, you're you have to have a little bit of that fake it till I make it. Like if you are trying to acquire your first clients to have like proof of concept versus 17 years in the same studio, having produced a lot of people, you do have that resume. You should be able to carry that confidence, but being confident and being cocky are different.
Yeah.
And I think that people mistake being a high performing producer, like sales producer or client acquisition person. They mistake that with, I got to be cocky. That's the sleazy kind of D-bag type
Wolf of Wall
person,
Street
right?
Type of thing, yeah.
Yeah. Now, could you be that person and close and bring a lot of people in? Yeah, sure. But do you have to be that person? No. And I would argue that the person who is confident, not cocky, and is truly doing their part to bring value to the other person is going to have longer lasting, rather than transactions, they'll actually build business relationships.
But do you fear the no responses?
Do I fear it? No, not at this stage. There was a place early in my career where like you did fear that, or you just, if fear might be the wrong word, but you knew you needed the yeses, right? Because as an entrepreneur or a 1099 person, you eat what you kill.
Yeah.
And so you need customers who could benefit from the service you provide. And if you get too many no's without a yes in between, then, you're out of business.
Yeah.
Right. So, but do I fear it? No, I read this book pretty early in my career, short, quick, like sales read, but it's called Go for No.
Okay.
And that changed my mindset around people telling me no. It was like, no one has 100% closing rate. And so if you know that you're going to have to accept the fact that there will be people who tell you no in between the ones that say yes, then your road to yes is paved on no's. And so you can start to actually know your numbers, but this only is possible if you're actually on like a constant pursuit.
Yeah.
So if you're like, hey, I want to try to have 10 recording artists a month.
Yeah.
And I know that 1 out of 10 people I approach are going to now become, like, they're going to indulge and come in and be a client of mine. Then you had to get 90 no's in order to get the 10 yeses.
Right.
So now you're actually looking for the no's because it's like a filtration process to get to the yeses.
Yeah.
And so if you can psychologically convince yourself that, like, I don't know if this person's going to say yes or no, but what I do know is if they say no, it's okay. They're out of my way and I can focus on the next person. And the more you do that, the better you can get at figuring out.
Do you get tired of the grind? Because being an independent, I mean, I'm sure at some point you weren't always independent. Like you had to learn this business.
Yeah.
Through
No,
I
worked at I started out in the business as an independent contractor, but I worked for another company as an independent contractor. I went through all their training and I did all that stuff. Right.
We were kind of sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
We were kind of chatting just a few seconds before we went live, and we were talking about the independent contractor thing and like working for yourself and being an entrepreneur. And yes, it's all great in theory. Like it's all like, I want to go work for myself, and I'm tired of putting up with the man and all that stuff. That's all well and good, but dude, there's for so long, and even sometimes in perpetuity, there's no true security.
Mm-hmm.
For someone like me, my income changes every month, every single month, because we're completely doing, we live in the gig economy. I live in the gig economy, so there's some months where it's like super great. And then there's other months where it's like, not so great. There's some years, like people ask me, okay, well, what, if it's an accountant or whatever, it's like, well, what are you planning to make this year? Or what did you make last year? And I'm like, well, really? Like I first of all, I'm embarrassed to tell you. Secondly, I don't really know, because it's like, every month is something different. And that's one thing that I don't think that people really grasp and understand is the amount of hustle that it takes.
Right.
The amount of grind.
Well, specifically,
no one's handing you jobs.
Right.
No one's handing you, and even being an independent contractor, no one's paying your taxes. Like you have to set aside, it's that whole thing.
Yep.
You have to be able to go out and actively, constantly seek and make things happen. Like they don't tell us that as kids. Being an adult is going out and making things happen.
Yeah.
Nothing is given to you, like nothing at all.
Yeah. And I mean, in your industry, I would imagine that it's competitive, but what's the difference between the dynamic in the hustle as the musician versus the hustle as the producer, recording studio, that kind of thing?
Well, I think producers now, our arch enemy now is home recording, where it used to be other big time producers, where it used to be a handful of huge producers, whether it be like in the ages of like Quincy Jones and, Wall of Sound and like, you had a handful of producers. Now with the influx of home recording, everyone has a laptop and everyone has a microphone. You ostensibly have a recording studio now,
right?
Because everyone's doing it in their bedrooms. And no one is really, I don't want to say no one, but most people are not coming in and needing to rent out a big studio because everyone now has plugins. They can, like, I have a vintage Hammond organ sitting right there. I've got 3 of these. I've got a Rhodes, I've got a Whirly, I've got an acoustic piano and all these things. All of these sounds now can be replicated on the computer by someone's little laptop.
And would you say that they can be replicated, but is the replication actually replicating it?
No.
Or is it just
no? That's always the argument of like, oh, you'll never be able to get a good. I feel like you can replicate acoustic piano, Rhodes, Whirly, and clavinet pretty good. Hammond organ, they still haven't gotten it right. But to me, it's not just about like. I think it's always going to be better that if you're in a studio where you're working with other people and bouncing ideas off each other rather than just sitting in your room with headphones and trying to create this music. Like there's a magic in a band recording together at the same time. And, it's few and far between now of people doing that. And I'm hoping that it's going to come back to it. And now there's this influx of AI, which is an entire conversation in and of itself. And it's something that is like, it's changing so much of the industry. And a lot of people are saying, if you don't hop on it, then you're behind the curve. And I have not opted to use any, I've opted to say, I don't want to touch AI music. I don't want to, because I've heard some of it and I'm like, this is so good that it's infuriating that it's so good. There's some stuff that is so good.
I think there was a country song that made like top of
Charted,
Billboard, right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it's so fast too.
Yeah. It's only going to get better. And I'm when I say it's so good, I know that there's been stuff even a couple months ago that was like, oh, this is not good. Dude, give it a couple weeks. We have hundreds of thousands of models training 24 hours a day on all this material. And they're going to be able to do, basically, I've heard a couple of soul tracks that I'm like, I don't know that it gets better. It's so good. And I'm like, that was one kid. I think the new musician or the new producer, I think there are going to be the titles for the new producers and musicians are going to be prompt writers. I think that's going to be a new position.
Right. You're right.
To be able to prompt, because people even on like, sometimes I'll go on like LinkedIn and stuff like that, and people are proud of their prompts. Like when they give us videos that are all AI, that's all they talk about is prompt writing. I think that's going to be like a new thing.
I think you're right. It's like copywriting. You hire a copywriter, you hire a prompt writer, because the AI can create all these things, but there is a degree of like, one, you can get that AI slop stuff, right? If you don't know what you're asking it, and that's getting better. But then it's you can go through this like loop of trying, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, like it's over with. But just the other day, we were at Grandma's house, and Thomas was making a joke about about chili, like New Mexico chili.
Yeah, yeah.
And how he's like, oh man, the chili like brings everybody to the block, whatever.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he started making fun of like that. My milkshake brings the boys to the yard, right? He's like, there should be a song about my chili brings the boys to the block or whatever. I went in.
You go on Suno?
I went on Suno.
Yeah, yeah.
I told ChatGPT, give me a prompt for Suno to make a thing about this, whatever. And within 1 minute, I had like 3 versions of a hip hop female artist song talking about New Mexico chili and all this stuff, and it was there. Now, was it a high quality chart rate? No, like it would.
But see that, okay, so that experience that you're having, of course, of course, I'm thinking that's cool, that's fine, that's great, that's all well and good. But people are using Suno to now pitch to what's called sync music, which is music for ads and TV and movies and stuff, and they're using it, and it's becoming more and more widely accepted. And that's where the problem lies, is I think that music as an art form or as a job is now being seen by Silicon Valley and the Suno people as we want to get that. There's a great podcast episode by a guy named Adam Neely where he goes into a deep dive with AI and music and how the CEOs and the heads of Suno, which is like, I don't know, $3 billion valuation, where they want to make music production and music as big as the gaming industry, where basically you sit down and as a game, you are just creating music. And there's so many things that I don't agree with that. I mean, of course, like for someone like you who is like in that moment, I want to create this thing, and it gives everyone such a great like laugh, and it's this is all well and good. But when it starts to take over, being able to like pitch songs and stuff for music and ads, it's going to put a lot of people out of work. But you have to look at it in this sense where it's money is the thing that speaks the most. So if an ad company is going to pay one kid, $300 to create a track versus somebody $2,000 to create an actual track.
Sure.
Like what are they going to do? Of course they're going to pay $300 for the same, same type of thing. So we're in a shift, I think, in music. I think it's a big conundrum. I think there's a lot of ethical conundrums too because of how it's trained and what is it trained on. Like it's trained on copywritten material and like, for instance, what it spat out to you, it goes back into their training system.
Right.
And it trains off of that.
Right.
And if I were to feed it a track with no vocals and I want it to create vocals on top, and what I created was completely mine, but I gave it to them, now that's in the training model. So somebody could get spat out something that sounded like my stuff. So it's training on copywritten material, and it goes into a really deep dive,
right? Which
I'm sure is already boring to people. But it's my main point is that we're going through a huge shift right now, and so I have this discussion. There's a guy in here that rents one of the rooms in here, Nick Rodriguez. Your kids go to school together, which is like the craziest thing.
Small world.
And he's on that precipice too. We talk about AI because he writes and composes for TV, and that I think that's the first thing that's going to go, the first most volatile thing. And so a lot of people are just going to be out of jobs.
What's going on, everyone? Today's episode was brought to you by Policy Engineer Insurance Solutions, a company that my brother and I own and are passionate about helping people with what we call the stable table planning, health, wealth, and legacy planning to give you a stable, predictable retirement. If you want to know more about how we do what we do and what areas we can serve you in, visit policyengineer.com. Now, do you think that there will be people out of jobs, but there will be people who never had like a musical bone in their body who will acquire a job maybe doing this, right? And so is it a one-to-one?
Okay, but dude, a lot of musicians don't know how to feel about that. Because
I agree, and I'm not saying I love it either. I'm just saying from just the pure economics of it.
I understand.
If we lose 10,000 jobs, do we gain 10,000 independent contractors?
No, I don't think it's one-to-one, because if you're talking about, let's say you have one person that can via AI create a fully produced song, right? Which would take normally 4 or 5 other people, sometimes 10.
Yeah.
Maybe one if the producer's a multi-instrumentalist, or two, because you have to have drums, bass, guitar,
Right.
keys,
Like a Dave
strings.
Grohl.
Yeah, you have to have so it's not one-to-one in terms of like, oh, we're going to get rid of this band, this 5-piece band, and then we're going to gain 5 prompters. No, you're getting rid of 5 people and just with one prompter, you're exchanging that.
Yeah.
And I think there's the argument of like, well, why did any musician spend their entire childhood and teenage years practicing? Like, why did they spend all the time studying? It's I guess it would be equivalent to, of course, not as important, but somebody who goes to school for like medicine or something. They spent all that time studying, and now we've got this, prompter or AI model that can just basically, replace them. Of course, we're not there yet. I know we're not there yet.
Right.
But we're getting
Now,
there.
do you think it creates more like gig work? Like, let's just say, for instance, like people want to interact with humans still. Like if I go to a concert, I want to see people playing and singing and doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
So let's just see this through. An AI song that's created is top of the charts.
Yeah.
Am I going to go and watch a robot, or am I just going to watch like lyrics go across the screen?
No,
I want to see a band perform it.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a space being created where this song, you and your band need to learn it, train it, and you can go cover it and play it and put on shows, and people can have that experience?
Yeah.
But you didn't create the lyric or the chords or that
Well,
stuff.
there's a lot of bands that they make a living off of being a tribute band or a cover band, and they're being the Bee Gees, or they're being Journey, or they're being whatever, and that's all. That's great. Like, as long as you can make a living doing something like that, that's great. But I think that at some point there may be a backlash. Like when we came out of COVID, people wanted to go see live music. They wanted to, I think there may be some sort of backlash if there's too much AI, it feels too perfect. It feels, no, I want to go see a live band play. I think there will be. I've read a book that they did studies, or someone else did studies on the physiological effects of music on a human, and the biggest effects that it had on like brain chemistry and like heart rates and blood pressure and everything was hearing live acoustic music being replicated either like through a sound system or literally being in the room. And then they could measure all the effects that it has. And then it did all these tests, and it even tested like the super compressed MP3 that we hear like through Spotify and stuff. And it had such a drastically different and less impact on the body.
Can you speak on, there is something, right, where like the megahertz that the music is played at like changes frequencies and stuff, right? So you can play the same song at different rates. Am I correct?
Yes.
And this changes the way our brain...
It does.
Right?
It does.
So in real life, a guitar or a piano being played is happening at the frequency that's beneficial, right?
Yes, and there's no compression rates, there's no algorithms. That's how we are essentially receiving those sound waves through our ears.
The actual energy and the native...
Yeah, you're moving the sound, the air pressure in the room. And in order to save, it's really about data, like pushing data up and down our internet pipes. We can make these files smaller. We're going to save money. And so they come up with compression algorithms, and it used to be huge files, and then it comes down to now MP3s and all this stuff. And they say, oh, it's lossless, you can't hear any difference. But I mean, I've seen the tests that they've done, and there is a difference.
So what about AI in the music world that you think is actually like for the musician? So for example, like before I got into finance and all that stuff, I was going to school for graphic design and garment design, stuff like that, right? So I was very resistant to certain innovation at first. Okay. I was learning Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, inside out, all the tools, I knew every command and all that stuff, right? And then I remember the beginning of like when Canva came out and things like that, right? And I'm like, this this isn't a designer,
Yeah,
right? Like
dude.
this isn't that.
Like
And
you have a visceral reaction to it, right?
yeah,
Like,
you're like, "Pff, no one's gonna, right? But I use Canva all the time now,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because not everything needs to be created from scratch.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's true.
especially, right? And so
That's true.
there are certain things, like if I have a logo for a brand I'm creating, I probably am not going to just tell it like, make my logo, right? And just accept it.
Right.
But I may go in there and say, like kind of brainstorm and use it for vision boarding and stuff, because it's fast and it can throw things out.
Yeah.
And then I use this to like help me come to the final conclusion.
Yeah.
That's like design. So are there any AI tools?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I see where you're going with this in terms of like AI not being it's not like the grand evil, especially in the music world. And I was just talking to somebody on a show the other week about a guy that uses AI as a writing partner, basically. You know, he'll say like either just like give me a drum loop that sounds like XYZ, or he'll feed it a drum loop and come up with a bass line and stuff. And you know, yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, fine, great, whatever. But he actually now he has fed his AI model so much of his band's work that he's created a clone or a model of his lead singer's voice. So he doesn't even need his lead singer to write the songs and demo out the songs anymore. So there's always that, and I'm like, okay, well, it feels like AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, dude. Like it's doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to feel about it. Like when you was talking about the graphic design, you know, like we all see something and we get inspired and like, oh, I want to create something like that. And that's how it's always been. But there's I don't know, like where is the line of like, no, dude, like this robot created this for you and you're just signing your name to it. You
Right.
know? I don't know. It's so new,
Right.
and there's a guilt level associated with, you know, with stuff like
No,
that.
I feel you on it, and I try to see it from both sides. I prefer the human aspect of it, but when you look at most brands are someone who had an idea,
Yeah.
who then hired someone else to make it,
Yeah.
and then they put their name on it
Sure.
and then package it and put it out into the world.
Sure.
So yeah, I definitely, I feel like there's this middle ground though, where like AI can be used to do work. Like I'm trying to think on the music side of things. I don't know, but if you were like, hey, there's a mistake somewhere in here, help me find it, and
Yeah.
like listen to this and
Well,
pinpoint
okay, so
it fast, or that
I'll
type of
help
stuff.
you come up with an example of something. For instance, you could write a track with no vocals, no lyrics. Like write a track, and it's a great sounding track for whatever it is, whatever purpose it is, and feed it into AI, and it can create. If you don't have lyrics, it can create the melody, and the voice. Like it can be your lead singer, which is the entire song, in my opinion, which is like, that's what makes it. Like no one really ever, you know, listens to a band and they're like, oh my God, it's so good, but I hate the lead singer. You know, most of the time you're like, dude, this lead singer is amazing. Like that's why you're,
Yeah.
you know, so they're creating some of the most important aspects of the you know, of the music. And again, it's so new, and there's so many. I mean, go on YouTube and there's 500 million videos on AI, and you know, on music and AI and all this stuff, and whether it's ethical and whether or not, you know. And I don't know. I don't have any answers. I don't have any, like, I just have my opinions of where it lies now, in that it's kind of sketchy, and it's kind of like, and I'm sure someone will be like, oh, well, you just haven't used it yet. And okay, well, I haven't. And I don't know that I will.
Right.
I have used Suno one time to create, I wanted to see what it was about.
Yeah.
So I had it create a hip hop song based on some prompts and stuff, and it spit out something. And I was like, this is good, dude. This is good. Like I heard it and I was like, this is a good song.
Or you've
and
seen
it made
all
me angry.
These viral, like 50 Cent, if it was a 1950s, you know, whatever.
That stuff is
song.
so good to me. Like I hear that and I'm like, first of all, that rhythm section is amazing.
Yeah.
Whatever AI vocalist that is, like, I wish I had that voice. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
and that's what upsets me, is like, it's so good, But there's the flip side of it is all that stuff's been trained on already copywritten material.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
know there's a lot of lawsuits and there's a lot of stuff
Right.
coming out about that. But
Have you had any situations where you've actually lost an opportunity to AI directly, where like it's like, hey, I'm not going to use the studio or you anymore because I'm just going to do this?
I'm sure, but you won't hear about it.
Right.
Like
Okay.
no one's going to come up and say,
Yeah.
hey, I mean, people have said before, like, oh, I mean, you never know whatever people's excuses are, if they're real or not,
Right.
So I'm just like, okay, if it's studios, because I'm in Orange County, like most studios are in LA, and I go up to LA quite a bit to session for strings or to session for what choir or whatever it is, if most of the talent is there or the project is there. But in terms of like straight up, like, no, I'm going to use AI.
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone's ever actually admitted it, but I'm sure it's happened,
Right.
So,
So, I see this. There's the lane where it's like I'm the purist and I'm sticking to the way it's always been done.
yeah.
Then there's I'm the early adopter. There's people who are just like everything is AI, right? I think Timberland, who is a very famous producer, right? He was one of the first people to actually start an AI like artist or recording label.
Oh wow.
Right? Like he's
wow.
I don't know the details
He's an early
on
adapter,
it. But he's an early adopter of it, but I don't know that and then so I see there's the purist, there's the I don't know what you call it, but the early adopter, the forefront of that, and then you've got kind of this hybrid.
Yeah.
I would see the hybrid as sort of like, I can offer services that are at more of a value price. Tell me what you want. I know how to prompt this thing to give you that. But if you want like what we're really known for, like if you want to really do this, this is our flagship like offering as a recording studio.
Yeah.
Do you ever see yourself adopting, having a hybrid and using that as like in my world, I would call it a lead magnet. The people who are out there and who are interested, they're looking online, they're trying to do it themselves. If you could show them, I can do it for you. This is how you do it, but here's what you're missing, and this is why we still do it this way.
Yeah.
Then it could actually be almost like a lead flow. This doesn't take a lot of time and it doesn't cost me a lot of money, but I can use it as a filter to see, okay, if I get 100 customers who came in like that, 3 of these people, like these are like artists that need to be with other artists. And like, I've got to pluck them by hand and say, let me share with you why upping this to a studio thing is something that you need to do.
Yeah.
But you're using it like a fishing lure almost and finding those people. I don't know if that's
I think
value or not.
For me, that's a tough question to answer, because in the quite a bit of time that I have spent with AI, not on the music end, but just on me sitting with Claude or Grok or GBT, AI can be and is often so confidently wrong. So wrong, but so confident.
Yeah.
And then you immediately correct, and it's the response coming back is, you're right, fair point. And then you correct again, go 180, you're right, fair point. And that can go on forever.
Oh yeah.
You can go. And so I think the people that trust AI, like I'm to the point now where I don't have any full trust in AI. There are some models that have been extremely helpful, but you have to only use it for specific things. Like, there's been times I've even fed I've got a friend who, I have 2 dogs. She has 2 dogs. She had to take her dog into the emergency room. She sent me the PDF of the test results, and I fed it into my AI. She fed it into her AI, and it was the same model. It was the same GPT, whatever. And what it gave me back was completely contradictory to what it gave her back. And then I told my AI model what her GPT said, and it said, no, that's absolutely wrong. She did the same, and it said, no, they're absolutely. So it was completely conflicting information, same source of truth,
Yeah.
So as far as AI goes, I don't know, dude. It's like if you want to use it and it's beneficial to you if you're coding or, I've got a friend that builds amps and like stuff like that, and he uses Claude, and it's super helpful for him. But as far as music production, I haven't gotten into it, and I don't know that I ever will. I mean, maybe, who knows? I don't know. Like if you're dry on ideas, like maybe you could spit some. I have used it for lyrical help, and some of it is just as corny as can be, and other stuff is like, okay, that's inspirational.
Right.
That's great.
I'm curious, who's your favorite band?
Ooh, of all time? Like,
I mean, I know the list is probably vast.
It's
your
vast.
Genre is wide.
Right, well, I would say first and foremost the most biggest influence is Stevie Wonder. I would say Stevie Wonder, because I grew up in church music and a lot of black gospel music, like kind of Pentecostal shouting, a lot of James Cleveland, Walter. These names may not make any sense to anybody, but James Cleveland, Walter Hawkins, even Gary Oliver, Andre Crouch. These are names in the gospel world, that was a lot of influence in my life. And then my parents are more Southern gospel and country. Like they love that stuff. I've got a brother named Waylon, named after Waylon Jennings and so there's a lot of country, but I always gravitated. I was made fun of in high school for listening to Jodeci and listening to, High Five and like listening to like urban music, and everyone else was Nirvana, Metallica, and Pearl Jam, and
right.
And so Stevie Wonder, I think, is the biggest influence. Of course, there's Prince and there's Marvin Gaye, and but there's also people that are under the radar that just blow me away talent-wise, like a singer like Matthew Ward, or I love a lot of Luciano Pavarotti and stuff like that. And of course, John Williams. And I think there's different aspects to like who you would listen to pull from, ideas from. But one of my biggest influences was Toto. And I was offered a keyboard slot in Toto. And I had to turn it down. And that was one of the biggest, it was one of the hardest, like professional decisions I had to make. Like Toto was, to me, the echelon of like musicianship. And I know there's a lot of flack that comes with like Rosanna and Africa, all that stuff, but there's such good musicians, and, I think it was last year 2 years ago, I was kindly offered the position, and it was a situation where was dealing with some health issues with some family members, and I had just gotten 2 new. It was the greatest opportunity, but at the worst time, and that was heartbreaking to say. I'm sorry, but this position that I've always wanted, I can't do. That was really, really.
If that came back around, this would still be something on your heart you would do. Like if the timing was right.
Yeah, I mean, of course, dude. I told a couple of my musician friends and who were Toto geeks. Like we would come in and just to warm up, we always play Toto songs or something. Because the musicianship is so good, and whether or not you like the genre or the style of the sound. In my estimation, one of the greatest drummers, if not the greatest drummer in the world, is in that band. One of the greatest guitar players, keyboard players, so they're so good. So if it came back around, of course I would be like, find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
But as I get older, I'm more of a homebody now. Like going on tour, like being gone for 11 months.
This was 2 years ago?
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
You've aged that much in 2 years that you're over toured?
No, even then, I was like being gone for like 2 years or whatever. Like, and I had just got 2 puppies, and I like, it sucked. But I can't think about it. I have to just like, well, okay,
Yeah, no, of course you don't want to dwell on it. But,
yeah.
So in all of these projects that you have gotten to work with, or musicians and people, who do you think has been the most inspiring that you've been able to be like side by side and actually
Steve
done?
Perry.
Okay.
Steve Perry from Journey.
Tell me more about that. How did that happen?
Well, I think how we crossed paths is he was in a studio in LA and they were mixing a song that I had done the orchestral arrangement to.
Mm-hmm.
And he got my information. That studio owner, texted me and said, "Hey, Steve Perry just came through and he wants to contact you." And I was like, "Come on, dude, don't mess with me like that." I'm like, "Yeah, right, that's funny, haha." And so it's the age old joke. And then I get a text, "Hey, this is Steve Perry. Do you have a minute to talk?" And I was like, "Okay." And he calls. And I didn't believe it was, because it's Journey, dude. It's like, don't
Right.
stop believing, it's O'Sherry. It's,
it's
it's all that
huge.
stuff, dude. I mean, one of the greatest singers of all time,
Mm-hmm.
of rock singers of all time. And it just kind of blossomed into such an amazing, really like a friendship,
Mm-hmm.
and then like I've learned so much from working with him. And
In what aspects? Like technical musicianship or like producing or carrying
a
yourself,
lot
stage
of,
presence?
so he's self-professed to be like, I don't know, he doesn't know a lot about music per se in terms of like notation and theory and all that stuff, like, so, but I would say more on the sort of spiritual side of music, in terms of like trusting your gut and just trusting the feel. And like, one of the
Mm-hmm.
first times I recorded with him, I was on a piano, acoustic piano, like Frank Sinatra's piano. We were in a studio and I kind of started warming up and he comes out and he goes, no, save it for tape. I'm like, don't waste what you're doing, And I was like, oh, okay. I've never really heard that before, I mean, I've heard it, but, and
That would be like when I was like, don't talk.
yeah.
Like, we just got to start recording.
Yeah.
'Cause
Like if you
just
hear
get it.
something where you're like, oh, this is going to be,
Yeah.
and he was always one to push, like, usually he was saying this to me, like, usually your first take is your best. Like, that's your instinct. 'Cause you're not thinking, you're just going,
Mhm.
you're not thinking. And then of course, stories of the heyday and how, how passionate he is about music,
Mhm.
how much he loves it, how much he loves the groove. And, and of course, sitting in a house on acoustic piano and next to me is Steve Perry and we're harmonizing, singing together, Just Us Two, Open Arms, or DS, Don't Stop Believing, or whatever song that we're doing. It's just like, there's so many moments where I'm like, what the F is going on here?
Right.
This is unbelievable. And dude, I'm still like super, still, I mean, it's intimidating, dude.
Mhm.
It's intimidating,
I'm sure.
because I'm like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Like, I'm playing the piano and he's next to me and we're both like, even at place that we were at, like microphones singing together. And I'm like, this is unreal.
Right.
This is unreal.
Yeah,
Like,
those
and
are
the
like
guy,
childhood kind of
he's
things.
so gifted and so talented, like just melody wise, and a great ear. And, and
How much do you think like the success of someone like that with like this really long, just kind of timeless thing is the talent and the gift versus the drive, determination,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna
and
I want to
and the
accomplish.
opportunity.
Yeah.
And the opportunity, because dude, I'll go on something like Sound Better or on Instagram, and there are some singers on there that are mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why aren't any of these people like famous? Why does nobody know about any of these people?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's always been like this. Like back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there's been talented people all around.
Sure.
It's just there are specific ones that get that opportunity or lucky break, or the label side decides to back this person, or this person's more marketable, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But I don't know that there's anyone that is truly successful that doesn't have any drive.
Mhm.
Like you have to have some sort of passion and drive
Mhm.
to do something.
Yeah. Do you still see that in him now, even though he's like probably doesn't need to go knock on doors the way he would have back in the day, right?
Well,
So it's
I'm sure it's not missing any meals, but the passion for music, I don't think that ever goes away. The passion for like singing and like, dude, I don't think it's ever, because when you listen to a track of something else, and we're both like, oh my God, this is so good, this is so like amazing and blah blah blah, and then I think whatever, life gets in the way, and you just get busy doing other stuff. But I don't think the drive or passion ever leaves. Like, I think you could be, if you're a musician, you could be sitting in front of a computer till you're on your deathbed listening to music or creating stuff,
Do you think anyone can learn to be good? I mean, I know some people have this natural, you pick it up faster, like you can hear music and know how to play it or whatever. But like, I don't feel like I have a musical bone in my body.
Okay.
Naturally.
Okay.
I do think that I'm a determined person. If I really said I'm gonna do this, I'm sure I could learn how to play some songs.
Yeah.
I'm sure, but like, I can't sing. So I'm just curious, do you think that anyone can be taught to be like decent?
Yes.
And then the separating factor of decent to like incredible is something maybe
I think I listened to a podcast episode, and I don't remember which, I'm trying to remember what it was, but it was basically an episode of a woman who had pretty much no singing ability. People say, oh, I'm tone deaf. If you're tone deaf, actually tone deaf, that's a different category. Usually you'll have a lisp, and it's like, people that say that they're tone deaf probably aren't tone deaf. But this girl,
I'm probably very close to that.
You're on the spectrum.
Oh yeah, I'm on the tone deaf.
You're like tone deaf adjacent. This girl recorded herself singing, and it was not good. And she said, I want to sing like Christina Aguilera. And so she documented her process of like 2 years or something of like weekly or whatever it was, singing lessons. And every day she would practice. And when they got to the end of the episode, they played her first singing, and then they played her singing, at where she was now. It was pretty mind-blowing. It was like, wow, that was amazing. I think there are limits to how good that somebody can be. Somebody like a Whitney Houston, who it's just some miraculous gift. No, an average person will never be able to get that good. And I think that they've done scans and stuff on the brains to see if there's, any sort of, predisposition to a musical brain. And there is. And I think you just get a easier starting point, like for somebody that has no skills or dexterity, you can get good. You can, but it takes a lot. It's with anything else. It takes time, and, you just got to sit and practice and do it. So yes, it is possible, but for someone that maybe doesn't have any sort of predisposition to it, I don't think the highs can be as high as someone who's just like, a Stevie Wonder or Whitney Houston or somebody.
Yeah, they're kind of that cross section of the God-given gifts, and they figured it out, and they got the opportunity, and
I think for something like being a classical pianist, they can tell pretty early on whether your hands are big enough or whether you have the dexterity or whatever. And then they'll say, don't waste the next 15 years of your life studying 6 hours a day. Like, it's just not going to happen. So then you go in a different direction,
Right.
But in terms of, can anyone do it? Yeah, sure. If you want to be dedicated enough to do it.
Right.
So. What's
your favorite instrument to play?
Hammond organ, probably. It's that old gospel organ. It's the two-tiered. It's that one right there. I know we don't have it on camera, but it's 2 tiers, and then there's foot pedals, and that's my favorite, probably my favorite overall, just because it's so broad, and and I had 2 of them stolen actually out of my trailer. Out of 1945, and then in the 60s, and they were stolen from the studio that it was in a trailer. And so I've got this one left. That's actually an A100, but the Hammond organ. And then I quite like, any of the keyboard instruments I think I like the best.
Is it true that if you can play the piano, then you can probably play like almost any other instrument? I've
It's
heard
not
this.
true that you can play, but it is true that if you play another instrument and you go to study music, they make you learn piano. Like every musician should be able to at least know the keyboard
Mhm.
on a piano. So like I can play the piano, but I'm not going to pick up a guitar and start shredding because it's different. It's a different like the fretboard layout is totally different than the keyboard layout, and the dexterity is also different. So I think it's almost in reverse that if you can play another instrument, you should pick up the piano.
Be a good
They
at
make
piano.
you do it. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
You've been doing this for 17 years.
yeah. Well,
Right?
I had this studio for
Or this
17
studio, okay.
years. I've had this space for 17 years, and I got started in recording back when I was in ministry, actually. I was ordained. I went to theology school, and then I was ordained in 99. I graduated high school in 96, and then I went to theology, a smaller theology institute. I was ordained in 99, and then but started working. I took some lessons as a kid, piano, but then quit. My piano teacher told my parents, "You're wasting your time because he's not going to practice." And then in 97, after high school, it was almost like I woke up and I had just this uncontrollable desire to want to learn how to play the piano. It was an odd thing. So I would sit at a piano with cassette tapes, put cassette tapes in and try to figure out songs, like play in reverse and just like figure out songs. And I didn't really know anything. I mean, I know the notes on the.
You're 18 plus at this point.
Yeah. I graduated high school 17. I was 18, 19 years old. And then I enrolled myself at junior college, Santa Ana Junior College, to study music theory. And I didn't know anything about theory. And then all of a sudden at my dad's church, the music ministers left. And so we didn't have we had no keyboardist. We had no nothing. And so I learned a couple of songs, and like, it was like thrown into the fire, just kind of started playing in church. And it was really, but I had a passion for it. Like, I don't know, maybe a year before, and I would spend all day like just trying to figure out what these keys mean. And then worked in church from then on until about, 2000, and I don't know, whatever. We were there till about 2004, and then we started a small ministry, and that's around the time. What year did you and Libby?
2011.
Okay.
We like kind of started dating, hung out, right?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
2000, end of 2011.
Okay.
2012, whole year married, 2013.
Yeah. Okay, so and then we had a small group church, and I was doing that. But all that time I was in ministry, either being the worship leader, and I had a choir at our old church. I had a choir and a band, about I don't know, anywhere between like 30 to 50 voice choir, depending on who decided to wake up.
That's a pretty good sized choir.
Yeah, it got pretty good. There were times on like a Sunday night when it's like, oh, we got 15 people here, because if it's summertime or something, and people are on vacation.
You have 30 people performing and there's 15 people.
Yeah. And so that was the best place to cut my teeth in music, was church. The best place. And then that's where I kind of was learning harmony and how to direct a choir. And you're just kind of thrown into it. And, I feel like if you enjoy something and you'll spend the time to learn. Yeah. And I think partly because I didn't want to feel embarrassed. I didn't want to feel like I didn't know what I was doing.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, well, here we
you
go.
Have that. You're the pastor's kid, so you're on a little bit of a more elevated being looked at.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, having a theology background, being a man of faith, being in church all these years, recording all that stuff, what are your thoughts on music is this like spiritual battlefield, right? And there's so much, I don't mean not quality, but like actually not good for you music, right? And and lyrics, and whether you want to go all the way to the point of like bands and musicians who are publicly outwardly saying like, you know, we're satanic bands, or we're like that, and then other things where it's just promoting all kinds of things that at some point in time I think we've all like been bumped a hip-hop song that talked about a lifestyle that really isn't actually feeding anything positive, you know. But like, I'm curious, because you have a theological background, like what is your thought around music and its influence on our lives, both positive or negative, and that kind of thing?
Well, there's no question that music can put you in specific moods. You know, there's times when if you put on a classical piece, like it can bring you to tears, or you know, some singer-songwriter can with the lyric. I mean, even without lyric, you put on some Brahms or something, and it can move you. Like there's something spiritual to it, you know. And whether or not it's spiritual, there's something like scientific or biological, I don't know, physiological about it. I can't really explain it. But I think what you're talking about specifically is like lyric content, right? Not just the feel of something. Because there's like Christian hardcore death metal.
Right.
Which it doesn't make sense to me.
Right,
what?
Yeah.
You know, where they're like, but they're talking about like the cross or like the blood of Christ. It's hard for me to marry those two, you know.
Right.
You know, because every time I hear that, you just want to like, you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of like lyric content, I don't know. I've gotten maybe more or less judgmental. I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm more angry. You should, like, as you get older, like chill out more. And I think I've gotten more like more angry. But the lyrical content, I think there's been a couple projects where I've backed out of, you know, because it was just promoting, like a hip hop project where it was promoting, you know, not necessarily because I'm like, oh my God, I'm sinning, but it was more of like, I just don't want to be associated with that. Like, I don't want my name on this, and I don't want to be associated with, like, you know, like I'm not a feminist by any stretch of the imagination, but it was like degrading, you know. It was like, dude, it's not feeding me at all.
Right.
Like, it's not feeding like, what good is this doing me as a person? What good is this doing? And if they want to do it, that's all well and good. But, you know, I think everyone needs to work out their own salvation. Like, everyone needs to work out, can you jive with this? Okay. If you can't, great. If you can, great. You know, I think it's all like, you kind of got to work that stuff out yourself. And, you know, but there have been, I think, a couple projects where I backed out, you know, just, and respectfully, just like I maybe made an excuse that I don't know that I don't know. I don't remember if I actually said, dude, I don't want to be involved in this, you know, or it was like, oh, I just made up some other excuse to be like, I got to go wash my hair, you know?
Oh yeah.
You know, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a fine line. I mean, if I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I would definitely temper what they watch and what they listen to. Absolutely. You know, because there's some stuff, lyrical content, where it's like, I don't want to.
Right. Well, I mean, you even think back, as a parent, you think back to times and you're like, there's a lot of things that you consumed that you wouldn't then turn and share and be like, let's all turn this on a family drive. Right. You know what I mean? And like, you know, we road trip a lot. It's like, oh yeah, that playlist isn't for the kids. Or whatever. But
totally.
When you're a teenager, you like don't think about it that much.
Yeah, my parents actually they weren't very strict with, like, they kind of they didn't let us set the rules, but I don't think they've ever said to me, like, we don't want you listening to this. But I wasn't listening to rock. My oldest brother was listening to more rock and stuff. And I think maybe a couple times my mom was like, but definitely not like how other moms were, where you had to listen to Christian music.
Right.
Like they were always putting on tapes or records of, you know, of artists of just good music, you know, whatever. And they didn't really care. But, you know, I don't know. It's few and far between that you'll come up with you'll play in something or record something that is offensive, you know. And I think there's specific genres that tend to be more push the boundaries.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
That, you know. But I try to have an open mind with that stuff, because there's been plenty of times, dude, when I've been asked to like tone down my sense of humor, of like, hey, like keep it. I mean, obviously, for the obvious ones, I just married one of my closest friends. He and his now wife asked me to perform the ceremony, and he said, I love you, but just keep it clean, like keep it clean, So
Yeah.
it's not that I'm like, dude, I'm the least like super buttoned up at all, But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, there's been projects where I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be involved in that,
Do you think music is healing?
Yeah. Well, in the sense of like, I guess in all senses, yeah, absolutely, it can be. It can be, yeah. I think obviously you can't prove this, but like I think there's something spiritual that happens with music. Like I think there's times that we throw this word, especially in the old Pentecostal world or Baptist, where like you throw the word anointed around a lot, where it's like, what does that actually mean? But there are pieces where I could say like that I've heard, or people that I've heard that are anointed, where like you hear somebody sing and it's like this, I don't know, like the spirit, there's some spiritual thing that happens where you're just kind of the spirit of God or
Yeah.
whatever.
It just feels like divine
it's
almost,
like,
right?
yeah,
Like
it's like
Mhm.
you just, and if you could explain it medically, I'm sure you could, that, oh, you're hitting all the chemicals, you're hitting all the dopamines and all the serotonins and blah, 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 blah. But I don't know. I mean, I think it can be. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, being
Like a spiritual
in the
thing.
business, though, can it drive you crazy also?
How so?
I don't know, trying to get you're making a song or recording an album, producing, and
Yeah.
you can't get it right, like the,
Yeah, I in my experience with that, if you're spending too much time on something it's not meant to be, in terms of like a part or something, and if
Yeah.
you are going over and over and over, and I think you have to, that's something that has to be experienced, and you have to learn that, to say you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You're trying to get this one part right to feel right and all this other stuff, and it's just like, dude, maybe it's not meant to be that. Like, let's just
Right.
give that up. Let's and it's hard to grasp that. Like, it's hard to not, especially someone who has a drive and a passion, to not want to be like, no, I'm getting this dang thing, So yeah, it can be frustrating, but at some point you have to, like, if you're working with a band and they're arguing over something, or they're trying to get something right, you have to be the one to say, guys, we got to keep moving. We just got to keep moving. Either we'll come back to it or it'll work itself out, but we have to keep moving.
Right.
We just have to keep going. Like you can't just stop, and you're going to waste the entire day just arguing about something that, you may think it's a huge deal, but it's not a huge deal. Like, let's just keep moving.
Right. Major in the minors.
Yeah.
It's something that happens a lot with creatives, I think.
Yeah.
Because you get stuck on that detail that you care so much about, but ultimately maybe nobody would even know other than you.
Yeah. I mean, they're futzing with sounds of guitars, for 20 minutes, and that drives me nuts. Drives me up a wall. Like, when these guys are trying to dial in their sound, and like, they spent all that money on gear and all that money on, and realistically they should have spent that time and money on lessons, and like trying to, like, it's just, to me, it's like, dude, we're wasting time, man. We're wasting time. And there's other purists that will sit and like dial in things forever, and kudos to them, but that's just not my makeup. I'd rather just like, dude, let's just keep moving. I'm kind of more of a broad strokes, type of person in general, but it can be frustrating, but it's music. It's not, it's not rocket surgery. You know what I mean? Like, we're not like changing people's lives.
But you might be. I mean, not all musicians are, but I think there are a lot of people out there who would probably say that an album or something like got them through a period of time.
Yeah.
Or you I don't really have this, but sometimes Libby will say things like she just feels like she needs to like cry or have an emotion or something, and then there's
Dude.
like music or things that would be put
I
on
think
to like
that's I think that's probably more of a woman thing to say and do.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to tread lightly here, but and like I will avoid that. But there are times when I'll be driving, and if I never listen to music in the car, but if I have to learn a song or something, I'll listen to it on the way to the gig, and it's a gospel song, and dude, I'll just start to like well up.
Mhm.
Like it just hits something,
Right.
It hits something. And last year I had an opportunity. My dad, who was the original house band on TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network, was at one time one of the largest Christian television networks in the world. And,
Mhm.
the owners have since passed, and I think they've scaled down, but in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, and even 90s, they were huge,
Mhm.
huge. And my dad was the house band. And so he was the lead singer of the house band on TV virtually every night, or like 5 nights a week. And so he'd go work his construction job and then drive to the television studio and then they'd perform. And so my family's kind of, always been musical. And fast forward, 40 years or 50 years or whatever. That's how I learned to play, was playing behind my dad. Was, he would just start singing a song, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, But then that's how you just kind of learn.
Yeah.
And so last year we did a gospel album together. We've never recorded together in all the years that I've done something. He came up to me and he was like, "Hey, how would you feel about just singing some gospel songs together that we used to do for church all the time?" I was like, "Okay, cool." What he was talking about was, "Hey, come to the piano, let's set up an iPhone and just like sing together."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought
You're like, I have a studio.
I thought he meant recording.
Yeah.
So I started coming in and I was like, all right, I'm going to start thinking, of arrangements to some songs and start writing this stuff down. And it turned into like an album.
Yeah, which is awesome, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man. Of he and I. And so now there's something out. It's under Dan and Dallas Kruse, called Haven of Rest. And it's just some old gospel songs that we like to sing, just he and I together. And then a couple of musician friends, played on it. But that was a really great experience. I mean, amazing experience for me, because we'd never recorded together.
Right.
But then, it's just some really nice responses from people like Lizanne, and, will text me every once in a while with a picture and, "Oh my God, I'm listening to this," and blah, blah, blah. And it's nice to hear. It's great to hear. And I think gospel music will always have a special place in my heart. Always, 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 no matter what other projects I'm doing. But, to answer your 20-minute question, or your question 20 minutes ago, yeah, I think music can be healing, or at least momentarily.
Yeah. Now, I love to listen to music in the car. You said you don't listen to music in the car.
No.
Why?
And if
it's like a taboo thing, or
no, it's because, and if perchance, like, I'll go and like my sister-in-law owns my brother owns a surgery center, and inside that surgery center, my sister-in-law runs an esthetician place.
Yeah.
And so they do like, whatever. And not that I've done that, but I have gone into, like, I've gotten a massage or something before, and I asked them to turn off the music, that like yoga music and something. But because I start analyzing the chord structure, like I start thinking of, it's distracting.
So you're not relaxing.
I'm not relaxing. No, I'm thinking of where they're going and picturing the music on the paper.
And then you're like, why would you do that?
And when I'm driving, like, I don't want to hear music and then get inspired, because I have a tendency to be anxious, and so I listen to something and I'm like, oh my God, that's a great idea, and I want to like work on, but I'm driving, I'm on the freeway, so I want to just like not be distracted by something. I'll listen to podcasts. Like,
okay.
I don't like listening to music. Of course, it's different if I'm driving with my nieces or nephews and they want to put on like Queen or something, I'm like, let's do it.
Right.
But
Yeah,
What
just like
music
a
do you
rock.
listen to when you're like, what's your,
I think that my go-to is anything that's like classic rock sounding.
yeah.
I grew up, spent a lot of time with my uncle Pancho. He would drive me to the beach. He taught me how to surf. We'd go to skate parks and he'd watch us after school. And he was always listening to Zeppelin,
Okay, yeah.
Rolling Stones, Tom Petty. That genre of music I think resonates the most. Like of modern bands, I love the Black Keys.
Okay.
Listen to them a lot.
Yeah.
I like that genre, right?
Yeah.
And then I enjoy stuff that gets a little bit more like true, like rock and roll, like modern. I like the Foo Fighters a lot, and I like that. Libby is like, I think she hears like pots and pans, sometimes like it just doesn't resonate the same way, but I enjoy.
She tends to like soul and R&B more.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
And like, I would say that like 90s, like slow jams is probably one of my least favorite music. Like, but there are some songs that like she'll play and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll listen to or whatever. But like, I don't know any of the artists. I don't get into it that much.
I think partly is because it's so sentimental. Like it was such a fun time in our lives.
Yeah.
Because I know the production value of some of those songs are just like, dude, this is cheesy when you listen to it for like the sounds and the production, you know. But I have a special place in my heart for 90s R&B.
Like I like the soulful stuff if you go back further.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so our music genres are not that easily aligned. But it's so funny just thinking about music, right? Like Journey was a band that Libby really likes and we both listen to, but it's so funny. We went to a Journey concert, but this is
with the new singer. Arnell.
And close your eyes, you're like, man, you're like, you're at a Journey concert, right? And then you open your eyes and you're like, that is not Steve Ferry. It's just funny. It's a funny experience,
dude. That guy's voice, it's crazy to get a replacement that sounds
a lot, almost the same. Very good job.
I mean, they did amazing with that, and I was going to tell you, there's a band that I've worked with called Rival Sons. You should check out Rival Sons.
Okay.
They're rock, but the singer Jay Buchanan, I think, is one of my favorite like singers nowadays, like contemporary singers. He's a guy that's moved me before. Like I was on stage playing for him, and I was playing the Hammond organ for him, and he was like as close as we are. And he started singing and belting out, and it was like something in my soul was just like, oh, good Lord. You just felt moved by this guy singing. He's so passionate and so just amazing. Rival Sons, check those guys out. Because I think they're in that kind of genre, Black Keys, Zeppelin-esque. But in terms of listening to music, I don't listen to a lot of music outside of the studio. I try to not. I feel like it just, I don't know. It's just more of the same. I need a rest.
Right.
I need a break.
Before we got recording, we were talking a little bit about health and mental health and some of that stuff. I feel like I don't, like, music to me is something that if I'm feeling a certain way, negative, anxiety, depressed, or anything like that, which fortunately I feel is like not that often for me, but like music is a great place to go. Or I like taking a walk and playing some music and just, letting your thoughts kind of go and stuff like that. But what has your experience been with mental health, and how's you were kind of tying it to being in business and the uncertainties and anxiety and these things.
Well, I think, I think everyone maybe to a degree has some sort of mental health struggle. And I think it is where it's not really a factor, but there's some generalized worry or whatever there's some clinical stuff going on here. Like there's depressive episodes and there's anxiety and then there's a lot of people that kind of live here, which is like, oh, I have generalized anxiety and I sometimes medicate. The amount of people that are on SSRIs and antidepressants is quite a lot of people that take that stuff and and it has helped so many people. But it is a struggle for me, I'm not unlike other people struggle with anxiety, and have had panic attacks and depression and stuff like that, and and it's gotten to the place where it's been rough, or it's taken a toll on relationships, whether it be romantic relationships, where it's like ultimately that was a big factor in why things didn't work out, and I think if you really are honest with yourself and come to a place of like, I need to get help for this. I need, whether it be therapy or EMDR or like medication, or talk to somebody, or talk to my chat bot, or, my AI or whomever. If it's starting to impede on your social life and on your life, then that's when it becomes a thing of like, okay, I need to sort of address this. And I think mental health nowadays has become so well accepted and commonplace to be able to talk about, like, hey, I struggle with this, and I struggle with this, and I have this, and I've talked to my parents about stuff, but we didn't talk about that stuff till I was in my 40s. Like, mental health wasn't, and it's not because we were avoiding it. It was just wasn't commonplace to talk about. Like, hey, I've been having some anxiety, or I struggle with depression, or I struggle with XYZ. And yeah, I've had some some tough times. I struggle with a vestibular migraine issue, and like vestibular kind of neuritis and stuff.
What does vestibular mean?
Vestibular has to do with like your inner ear. So it's everything that is your middle inner ear, and it has to do with like your balance and your your
people, there's like crystals, right, that happen. Like I've heard of people having that, and then you get vertigo.
You have your deep ear, your inner ear, and then you have your middle ear sections, and there's a lot of other things. But it was I've gone through some stuff that was a struggle, and I still struggle with it every once in a while. But I had a couple long bouts of some health issues, and like, I was down for like almost a year, and like down to like 140 pounds, and like couldn't eat, couldn't really do a lot, and that was induced, some vestibular stuff, and then was like inducing some like depression and anxiety, and it was just hard to, and thankfully made it through that, and I think you really you see kind of like, I don't want to say what you're made of, but having people around you that care, and but not being afraid to ask for help, as well in those times. So there's been health struggles and stuff like that. But in terms of being like an entrepreneur, that was tough, because there goes your income.
Right.
We don't have, there's no sort of like sick days, or it's like there's none of that, so that was tough. And dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression and stuff like that, is if you have people around you that will help, and if it gets to the point where you have good medical intervention, and that can be helpful as well, obviously.
Well, now, like, having gone through that, do you think that you can use that to serve others, like, and help someone else, or is it more of just like, I'm past it and I'm on my own thing? Or do you?
I think that some of the things that I experienced, yes, it can be helpful. I've had some people that over the years have asked, hey, what do I do for this? Or and I could say, listen, I've been through that, and offer some sort of help. But then also it makes it easier if you have any other future bouts of it, like what it is.
Right.
So much of life is like fear of the unknown, and once you experience something, the next time you experience it, I don't know if it gets any easier, you can understand it better. You can cope with it, more. So I think that is helpful, as well. And I don't think it's something that will ever, go away, or like that. But it's something that you have to learn
Yeah.
to cope with, you know.
So in theme of thinking beyond the horizon, what's the biggest risk that you want to take but have not stepped out into yet?
Oh, how much time? We don't have enough time, dude. We don't have enough time. Well, dude, I think everything. I thought about this the other day. Let me situate that. I thought about this the other day. Every decision that you make, there's always going to be a loss of some sort. There's always going to be some sort of compromise.
Yeah.
In every decision that you make. For instance, I want to lose weight. I want to get in shape. Okay, well, if you look at it at face value, that's a wonderfully positive decision to make. But you're going to give up a lot of foods that you like. You're going to give up sleeping in because you need to get to the gym. There's always going to be some sort of like equal and opposite reaction, you know? And it took me when I understood that was very beneficial for me in that you're going to, like, you make the decision to get married. Okay, you give up single life. You give up, make the decision to have kids. Well, you give up pretty much any, sense of like individualism at all, or like your own personal time. And so I think looking beyond looking at things that I'm afraid to make the decision of or whatever, I deal with that constantly of like, I'm unsure of some of the decisions that I'm making. But if you get stuck in this hamstrung place of I'm not going to make, because not making a decision is a decision. Like that's ostensibly a no, answer. Like that's making a decision. But I think it's how you feel, like if you're okay and at peace with it, with whatever decision that you make. And so many times it can just fail and you're done. Or other times it's like, yeah, I made this decision. It was the best decision of my life. But we don't ever really know. We never really know like what's going to happen. You never can understand that this is going to be the best. I just know it because I've been let down too many times. So I don't know. I mean, for decisions that you make, like we all have regrets of some, some way or another. So how do you handle that? I think it's, everyone says like, well, it's all how you respond to situations. And I know that I'm not really giving a very clear answer. I'm like dancing around the whole thing. And I think that's sort of exactly what I'm talking about. Like I'm not really giving a clear answer.
Right.
And that's how
Well, what's your next big move you want to make?
Oh. I would say, well, I'd like to buy a house, but we live in Orange County and, like it's one of the most expensive places to live. And without getting political, it's hard. But the next big decision, I can honestly say that I'm not sure. And I'm embarrassed, but like sorry, not sorry situations, where it's like, I don't know right now, I don't know. And I think because this last year has been kind of a little bit of a transition for me and some personal stuff, and then trying to figure out like what I want to do professionally, have gotten into some other avenues of like voice acting and stuff like that. And so that's opened up. So I'm kind of in a place where I'm like, okay, I need to figure out like what is next.
I saw your voice acting video that you put up, the audition piece the little like impressions and
the
stuff
demo
like
reel.
That. Yeah. I think that was pretty cool.
That's fun, and it's reaped some things, but it's the older we get, I feel like the less time we have. Of course, like the less time until we pass on, but the less. Like when we're young, we could invest so much time into so many things, and now I feel like, do I want to invest most of my time into this?
Well, you become more selective, right?
Yeah. So what is next? I wish I had an answer for you, man. And it feels like I'm like, I'm rudderless if I don't have an answer. But that's the God's
No,
honest
it's
truth. I
okay.
don't have an
You
answer
don't.
right now. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like,
You don't.
what's
Maybe
your next
what's
goal?
next is just leaning into what is already. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be new,
Yeah.
right? But I'm just curious when the idea of taking risk, especially with entrepreneurship, it's like no one else is telling you here's the set of tasks that
Yeah,
need to
dude.
be done. You
Yeah.
look and say, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do next, or if I'm going to improve or do that. So I think that we're the risk takers.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the next one that maybe we're waiting on and not quite going to make happen yet? But
Yeah, it's not easy being your own boss because you're the one who's telling other people what to do. Like you're the one who's, a lot of people need to be like, give me something to do, and when you're the boss, or for lack of a better term, you're the one that has to do that. You're the one that has to give them something to do. And that's always tough. So I think it's the grind and the hustle that is, it does get taxing sometimes. But on the flip side, you're not working for somebody else having to, sit in a cubicle for 9 hours a day. And I think there's a certain type of person, a certain majority of people are like, yeah, this is great because this is not my life.
Yeah. I mean, something that we've been working on, and we just kind of did a little bit of an overhaul within our business, is like systems.
Okay.
And really having like processes, procedures, and systems that are repeatable, duplicatable, so that we can scale and become more efficient. And and I think when the existing way of doing business can not feel unpredictable, then this can create space to figure out where's that next risk to try to expand, do something different, bring on client, something like that.
Yeah. But see, you're the one that has to implement and see that,
correct,
notice that the change needs to happen, or whatever needs to be implemented. So along with probably training your people and doing it, you're coming up basically with a curriculum of the systems and all this other stuff.
Right.
And sometimes, I'm sure you feel like there's not enough hours in the day.
No,
man.
There's not.
Like ever.
You're a solopreneur, right?
I don't know what that means.
Like no employees.
Right.
Right. So
I have other people that I pay out. I don't have any. I'm a 1099 employee, and all the people that work for me are 1099 as well. So like, for instance, there's a lot of musicians that I hire, but I wouldn't say necessarily that they work for me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, in one of the things I found that helped create more predictability is figuring out if you could just draw a line, that good old like T-chart type thing, and first list out every single thing that has to happen within the business for the business to function. But then take that list and separate it into two pieces. One side is things that must be done but do not have to be done by you. They could be delegated to anyone that you could just like teach to do this thing. But then there are certain things that can only be done by you. Only you can sing. Only you're going to play that thing. Only you're going to know how to like get the best out of that artist. Like there's things like that. And if you could separate that and then find a way to compensate someone and compliment you. Like the year I hired a personal assistant and did this exercise and really separated what had to be done by me and what had to be done but not by me, I doubled my business the next year, like production, because I could spend my time on the handshakes, the client acquisition, the attention to detail and stuff.
Yeah.
And the more monotonous, repetitious, like types of things, they were getting done, but I didn't have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it opened up more time for me to do the things that I'm strong at. So anyway, in your business, creating that, I don't know what those things are, but if there is anything where
I think it could definitely be applicable to the studio.
Yeah.
In like running this as a business. In the production of things. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it is as simple as like, you need to sit and write this down. Like you need to sit, and there's so many things going in your head. You need to sit and write down like what it is that you're looking to do, what it is that you want to do, rather than having all these things floating in your head. Why not just literally dictate
Yeah.
Like
Right.
what's happening. Like you were saying, write down your charts and your stuff. And that sometimes is helpful. I mean, I do it on the computer and stuff and try to come up with plans and schemes for that.
Well, let's see if we can't leave people with something tangible. If there's somebody listening who's a musician today.
Yeah. Don't do it. Go into something else. No, I'm kidding.
Well, from the eyes of a producer,
Yeah.
what is something that most musicians in your eyes just get wrong and you've got to come in and correct, adjust, or apply, that if they just did this a little better, most musicians would put out better music. They would record better tracks and like...
Well, I don't think that there's a secret pill necessarily anymore. Like music, it doesn't have to be so formulaic because basically there's no gatekeepers to who can hear your music. For instance, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, it was you got to get on the radio, and only a specific amount of people are getting on the radio. And then in whatever the late 90s or whenever, when iTunes came out, people could be self-published. And now with streaming, with Spotify, anybody at any time can put out a song. So there's no real like formula. You have to do it this way.
Right.
I would say just even little things. Don't skimp on production. Like have good gear, have good feedback in terms of a producer. Get your song professionally mixed. Spend the money and spend the time to get it done right, I would say. And then I don't know, don't be like super holy about parts of your songs or parts of your, because if somebody like me suggests, hey, we should maybe change this or change this, and I'm not doing it because I want to inject my ideas in. I'm doing it like we're here to help. And here's an idea. And if you don't like it, fine, I'll move on. But don't be so like precious,
right,
about specific things. But in terms of like becoming a musician and like, it's a lot of people think that, it's either try to be the Taylor Swift or nothing like that. There's so many avenues of being a musician. Like you can, become a composer, become an orchestrator. You can, play in a cover band. You could be a jazzer. You could, it's a big, you could go to Disneyland and play in the Disneyland bands. It's a big world of being a musician. It's not just because you didn't sell 20 million records doesn't mean that you're a failure, and the chances of that happening anyway are like slim to none, So if you want to get involved in music, understand that it's a big world.
Right.
It's huge. And yes, you can do it. And you could get lucky. But there are other things to get into because it's tough.
Right.
It's tough. I mean, it pays off. But I often asked my buddy Nick, we asked each other, like, do you think that you would, knowing what you know now, would you have gone into something else? And there's times when we're like, yeah, I would have gone into a trade, or built a plumbing business or something, where it's like more secure, it of course would probably drive us nuts, but I don't know. You can have creative outlets and still have a normal, like job and, like we don't have to, it's not like we're these weird savants that like, I have to sit down and play, it's not really like that.
Right. Well, I think a lot of creative jobs, like there are some people who actually don't do it because they think that when it becomes work, they'll lose their passion. They want to keep it a hobby.
Yeah.
Right. But
but I think it is like the more that you're creative, the more you're going to be creative.
Yeah.
There are times when you get burnt out, it's like, I need a break, but it's a muscle, dude. And it's just like playing, like musicians should be playing and practicing every day. Should be every day, or else you're going to lose your chops. And I think with the creative aspect of it, you should be like, if you're a composer, you should be composing something every day. If you're a songwriter, you should be attempting to work on a song every single day.
Right.
Like it sucks, but that's just the way it is. You got to keep your brain,
Yeah.
activated.
No, I mean, it's true. If you're an athlete, you got to be
That's it.
practicing. If you're a salesman, you got to be selling. If you're whatever.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate your time in here. I think it's been great. I love unpackaging this stuff and chatting with
Yeah,
you. I
man.
look forward to having some other guests in here.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so where can people find the album you and your dad did?
So, yes, and thank you for plugging that, man. I appreciate it. So it's under Dan and Dallas Kruse, and our last name is Kruse, and it's called Haven of Rest. And it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on Apple Music, it's on all the major streaming, and there's videos to it as well on YouTube that we did performance videos too. We came in and shot some video to it, but it's a great experience. That was a great experience. I'm proud of that one.
And if there's somebody who is interested in recording, how do they get more information about how to use Zion Studios?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is dallaskruse.com. All my socials are my name, Dallas Kruse. And then from there, there's like the studio stuff, and that's just the easiest thing to do. Just go to Dallas Kruse, DALLASKRUSE.com, and that's it.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, can I pray for you?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Lord, thank you so much for a new venue, opportunity to continue to use this as a platform to just share like interesting stories, connect with people. And I'm so glad that Dallas was willing to come on here and share just some of his different experiences that I know people will benefit from. God, I pray that in his life right now that you give clarity, organization, and give him like a really clear outlook on what is that next risk that you want him to take? What is that next move that you're calling to happen? And all the challenges that might come with it. But pray that this episode would impact other people, and that Dallas would have an amazing week, year, and a thriving studio. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. This is great, man.
Yeah, thanks. It was cool.
Thanks.
So can we get a little, you playing a little riff on the keyboard that we can throw in there? Like show people you really are a musician?